this is a silk filament. It is a twist, but it is a filament. So it's not spun, and it's got a little bit more of a bounce to it. It's got a little bit more of a body. And this is a silk twist thread. It's also really, really fine. And each of these, they're the twists, or however many twists per inch, is kind of how the size of your silk thread is usually determined. I am going to use Thread Magic, and this is a clear, I mean, mine's full of like thread bits, but this is a clear thread conditioner. You can also use wax, and I have a little bit of wax here too. I'm actually going to use Thread Magic on one and wax on the other. Also, never use more than the amount of silk thread from your elbow to your fingertips. Never use more than that, or you'll just end up with a tangled mess. I do not have the same kind of thread that you do. I am using a silk Gutermann thread, and I am going to use a size 10 sharp needle. It's a milliner's needle. So this is the waxed threaded one. And I'm gonna put that on my needle minder, and then I'm going to do some of this Gutermann with some Thread Magic. With any thread, you always run it through the conditioner a few times. I usually run it through 2 or 3 times. There we go. So you can run it through 2 or 3 times. There you go. Clip my thread. I run it through the Thread Magic or the wax before I thread the needle. Mostly because I have found that sometimes the wax gets gummed up in the eye of the needle, and then it makes it a little bit trickier to get through. Okay, so I have my Thread Heaven, and I put my wax usually in a pocket or something so that it doesn't get cold in between uses. Okay, so I'm actually going to chain stitch around this petal with the waxed thread. Something that I do, which every needle worker is a little bit different, but I learned how to use a throwaway thread over off to the side to kind of keep the back of my work from getting too gummed up. And I'm going to start in the center. Now, when doing a chain stitch, there's a couple different ways of doing it. I'm going to do it the way most people think of a chain stitch. So I have my little loop there. And then I'm going to come up about that far away. Now, if you do the stab method, I've gone down in the loop there, and I'm going to come back up here. Okay, so that's one way of doing the chain stitch. Okay, So these are individual little loops. Now, let's see if I can get a little closer for you. Did you see the nice distinct loops? See how that twists? There's too much tension on the thread. I wanted to show that to you. So if you end up with too much tension on your thread and you pull it up from the bottom like this, it's not difficult. Just go back into the base of where that stitch came from, straighten out your thread, follow it till it's top, and then pull. Now something you'll also notice is that I started off really tiny at the beginning of my stitches, right down here. These are kind of tiny. You don't need to make them that tiny. You can make them quite a bit bigger. I don't really have a measuring tool here, I don't think. Maybe I do here. As I go around this curve, I want to make sure that I don't have too much tension on my thread, because I don't want the chain stitch to tilt funny in the design. I don't know where my laying tool is, but if you have a, the tip of a pair of scissors or something, you can pull and keep the tension from going too much, and then you can control that chain stitch as you go around a corner. One of the things that you don't want your chain stitch to do going around a corner is to tilt, because then your piece doesn't lay proper. Okay, so this is another way of doing a chain stitch. I come up at the base and I create a tiny stitch right at the bottom. And then I come up just a little further away and I scoop underneath that tiny stitch. And then I go down at the base of that other chain. And then I move down just a little bit. And then I grab that chain stitch, that chain at the bottom, and I come down this way. Come up. Grab the bottom of the chain and go down. Now I've doubled up my thread for this. This is a sampler that I'm gonna be working other stitches in, so I don't mind using this as an example. But maybe it would be better if you could see it better. Kicker with this is you just really don't want to get the threads twisted. You want to make sure you have clear, defined chain.